Dendrophilian, you know, I would explain what you do. Basically, it's brainwashing. Brainwashing, yes. Because, like, I'm not going to explain the definition behind it, but, anybody can look it up and see it for themselves. Fact of the matter is, I'm not a body. I'm not a body. I'm not a mind. I'm not the neurons in my body. I'm not the chemical reactions. I'm not. Well, I am a little covered by lust. Yes, if I wasn't covered by lust, I wouldn't be in a physical body because I would be in the spiritual manifestation of the universe, and that's an absolute reality. Like for example, you don't agree with it because through all of your deductions, you have not found evidence of a supreme absolute reality that is superior in nature to the material manifestation that your senses are deducing. That includes the mind. Mind is actually a sense organ. Um, my point is basically that you do not consider the true identity of the living entity, which is spirit soul. Now, okay, I said that you can't really deduce absolute reality, so let me explain this. There are symptoms of consciousness within a living being, kind of like heat from a fire. Like for example, if you can't tell that there's a fire there, you might be able to tell that there's heat coming from the fire and that there's hot, or smoke, like smoke. You can tell there's smoke, you can smell smoke. Alright, so that's my analogy. So, how do you deduce absolute reality if you don't have the sense to do it? Well, actually, you do have a sense. Not really a sense, but more like a faculty. You have a soul. Or, excuse me, let me rephrase it. You are a soul. You can use your being as a soul to deduce consciousness. What you call chemical reactions and brainwave frequencies and electronic uh, neurological stimulations, I call a brain. Yes. I have a brain. The brain is basically the organ that the mind operates. Yes, I'm suggesting that the mind and the brain are two separate things. Why do I suggest that? Because I have the ability to superimpose my direction on the brain, thus the motors of the body. Well, you see, that's the thing. The body is not who we are, it is a covering. Like, for example, I wouldn't say that I change my car every 10 years, and that would mean that I would be a clone and that I would be dead. That's just a covering. Like, for example, if somebody wrecks their car, they don't get out and say, oh, I wrecked myself. That is if their body is not harmed. Because, it's still bodily identification, Like if I prick my finger, I'm going to experience pain, but that's not because of my true identity. It's because I'm conditioned by material nature. Now let's think about that for a moment. Material nature. What is material nature? Actually, it's three things. It is goodness, which is the intelligence that you use to make these amazing speculations. That's a form of goodness. You have intelligence, and I appreciate that. And then the next thing is that there's passion. Passion basically means that I might do something that feels good now, but ultimately won't feel good later. Like, for example, it feels good to go around saying these amazingly mind shattering ideas that we're all just bodies of pagan carnal horse sin, whatever. Um, that's passion. And then finally, there's ignorance. Ignorance is like when there's no good benefit from the action immediately or in the future. That would be something like suggesting that I am a tutu. Nobody's gonna agree with that. That's the mode of ignorance. You know, of course, we can all see the mode of ignorance for ourselves. It doesn't really need to be explained. I just thought I would use an example. All right. Now, my next suggestion is that because we are covered by these three conditions, we forget our true nature. Like, for example, you don't know anything about before you were born. You have no idea what, what you were before you were. You don't even believe it. You don't even think it, that you existed before your material body was ignited with the spark of a spirit soul. All right, you don't accept that. All right, but you do accept the fact that you can rationalize and form ideas, and you can tell that other things can relate to you in some ways, because actually material nature is a relational reality. That is, if I cannot relate to you, then we do not communicate, and there is no communication of reality going on. So hopefully I can relate to you in some way. That's why I'm not trying to bring you down or anything. I'm just trying to hope that we can maybe communicate about some of these misconceptions you're having about subjective reality. That's what we're in. We're in subjective reality. All right. So, if we are covered conditional bodies existing as spirit souls that have forgotten our true identity, then how do we find out this truth? What is the test? What is the litmus test to determine this? Well, actually, there's a process. What we do is we uncover the lusts of our mentality. Like, for example, we're people. So personality actually can have maladaptive learning developments, which I call nescence. Lots of people call it nescence. You know. So what nescence is when we replace something that our non-conditional absolute nature as a soul with something that is learned from the responses of our own actions. Like, for example, if I throw a pebble into a pool, you're going to see it, send out a little wave or whatever. So, although we don't have control over what the pebble's going to do when it hits the water, we have the ability to respond to what the ripple does. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say the ripple tips our boat over. Let's say it was a giant pebble, a rock, whatever. The rock tips our boat over. And we spill into the water. Now we have a choice. That's where free will comes in. We can respond to our karma. Do I let the sharks eat me? Do I allow myself to drown? Do I get back in the boat? Do I decide that I'm never going to throw a rock into the water again because I don't want to fall out of the boat? That's free will. That's what I'm talking. It's not a calculation of chemical reactions. It's actual consciousness. All right. Now, I'm not saying that a soul is consciousness. I'm saying it's a symptom of consciousness. Actually, what a soul is its eternity, its knowledge, and its bliss. All right. Now, you might be saying, well, maybe I've never experienced any of those things related to soul. All I feel is ignorance, passion, and goodness. Well, that's true, because we're actually identifying with the relational nature of reality in the material world and replacing it with the true identity that we're actually neglecting of the spiritual world. Yes, there's actually two worlds. That's what I'm suggesting. There's absolute reality and subjective reality. And that spiritual world is absolute. Alright, so I hope maybe we can discuss this further. I don't really cover my points. I should have organized my thoughts a little better. I have a habit of meandering. But the point of the topic is that no, we're not all dead in 7 years because we're souls. Souls are eternal, like I mentioned before. Alright. Thank you.